All right, what's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the weekend. Well, close to the weekend. It is Friday, November 10th, 2023. A big happy birthday to Missy Mimi's, by the way. It is about 10:41 a.m. California time, and the latest activity, oh my gosh, look at this movement here in Iceland. They are experiencing something pretty big there right now. It looks like we're about ready big to happen. Quite a bit of earthquake activity kicking up here in this area of Iceland. Also looks like a 2.7 here around the Mediterranean. Quite a bit of earthquake activity to cover. So we're going to start up here in the Iceland area. Now the USGS only showing a handful of earthquakes. They only cover, I think, about 4.5 and above for the international communities. But as you can see here on the Earthquake 3D globe, that is some big-time earthquake activity taking place here. In fact, the latest information statement here from the Iceland Meteorological Office here states that there's been about 800 earthquakes recorded since midnight, their time, midnight. And that is quite the intense swarm. They are still seeing continued inflation. In the SARS image right here, you can see that swelling going on beneath the land around this volcanic area. It looks like it's starting to spread out a little bit more here to the east. Definitely of some concern here. We haven't seen any breakage through the surface areas yet, but we're definitely seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity. And they mentioned here about the swarm of activity. A dense swarm of earthquakes began around 7 this morning in the same area around this region here. On the map, you can see that. That area is situated just about, just to the eastern edge here of this GPS swelling event. And these guys are saying it cannot be ruled out that seismic activity near this region is due to magma movements at depth. Obviously, I believe it is. We're looking at a huge intrusion of magma in this area. It's quite, I would say it's somewhat unprecedented here. Iceland does see quite a bit of volcano activity here historically, but this here is quite the uplift going on and quite the swelling underneath this area. They do mention here that earthquakes up to magnitude 5.5 can be expected in swarms, and the seismic activity may shift between areas, kind of like what we're seeing right now. There are no indications presently, though, that magma is forcing its way to the surface, but I would say, well, it's trying to. Look at that image right there. It's trying to. So we'll continue to watch that. There's definitely some huge swelling going on here within this area, some vertical uplift and displacement going on big time. Let's see, where is there? They got a little map here, I think, with some more earthquake activity. Reviewed earthquakes locations since the 6th of November and until looks like noon today. Still, well, that was on the 7th, 8th, 9th. All right, so let me see if I can find that GPS coordinate thing here. I think this covers today. Plot created on November 10th. So we're still seeing the vertical displacement here take obviously a huge uplift since about the end of October here, and that's continuing to this day. And this is just on a graph model. Obviously, this SARS image right here shows the real story in simple terms that these guys are looking maybe for an explosive event out here. Right now there's nothing keying up. There might be fissures opening up here in the future, or this might be some type of huge explosive volcanic eruption in the near future. So we'll continue to watch that. Earthquake activity definitely ramping up out there today, as you can see on the globe, taking up the majority of the multitude of quakes out here across the area today. I haven't seen it like that. So definitely got quite a bit of craziness going on out there right now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the world. In fact, general movement across the area of the globe looks active, very active, across portions of the Kuril-Kamchatka, the Aleutian Trench as well. Excuse me, just got hiccups all of a sudden. Going to jump into the west coast here real quick, see what we got going on. 2.5 map and above does show some movement kicking up there in Nevada earlier this morning with a 4.3 earthquake outside of the Tonopah area across the Candelaria Hills. Now, this area seems to stress quite a bit here. We get these earthquakes when the West Coast is building up some steam. I've been watching this area for a couple years now. I remember we've had a swarm back here. We even had a 6-pointer. I think it was a 6.1 back in 2019. I believe it was somewhere in there. Maybe 2020. I think it was 2020. But periodically they do get aftershock activity and swarming going on out here across this segment of Highway 3 there in Nevada. It looks like that's kicking back up here today. And these are basically weak areas, weak crustal areas when we see these swarms kick up like this. And that's normally a sign of stress out here against the North American plate. We've seen it out in Texas, away from the plate boundary. So watch the West Coast here. Far as the plate boundary itself goes, a handful of earthquakes in a little swarm fashion here. Just off the San Andreas Fault near the Pinnacles area, it looks like. A couple twos coming in yesterday and also today. So there's definitely some strain out there across the area. What's going on with my mouse? Ghost in the machine. You guys see that? A little weird. Not for sure what's going on with that. It's not the internet. Actually, maybe it is the internet. Let's see. I'll stand by here for a second. It's really weird. Don't know. But we'll continue to move on here. It just seems like stuff is going crazy here lately. The stream went down by itself. Not for sure what time, but someone doesn't want me up online. But that's okay. I will continue to pop up online regardless. Can't make everyone happy in the world, right? All right, so we got the swarm going on in Nevada, activity up and down the California region, mostly microquake activity in SoCal. But this movement here inland, that's a pretty good swarm of activity following that 4.3 this morning. Looks like we've seen quite a few twos and ones since then. So we'll continue to watch the West Coast area in general as a whole. Texas is showing elevated activity here over the last few days. Today, no exception there. Things are continuing with quite a few ones out there today around the Pecos, Texas area. This is where they've seen that 5.2 earthquake a couple days ago, but this has been an ongoing swarm out here in these oil fields for quite a while. Also, the New Madrid seismic zone out here showing some slight elevated activity with a 2.3 and a 2.0. Let's not forget about that fault system out there. It's very capable of putting a damper upon millions of people that live out here. Some very large earthquakes can take place in that area. Yellowstone National Park, nothing really showing up here, but I'm going to give a quick glance at the Yellowstone overview map, and then we'll get on with the rest of the world activity. Looks like a couple of small earthquakes here this morning and overnight, but nothing big. These are generally small. I wouldn't write home to anyone about that, not unless we see a bunch of twos kicking up there. Then it's a little bit different story, but for now, very small microquake activity. All right, let's go ahead and look at the areas around the Aleutian Trench and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. A lot of activity yesterday, late last night as well, including a 5.8 in the Kuril Islands area, 103 kilometers deep. That is right there in the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. And I've said it for a while, looking at megaquake potential in this area. It's been a little while. I think this is well overdue, well strained, well stressed. But for now, just a 5.8. And a couple other smaller quakes here in this area. The latest one does show a 4.8, fairly deep up here. Into the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench as well, 148 kilometers deep there for that earthquake. So deeper scale movement, adding further strain up here around the already locked area. Let's see, around areas south of Japan, including areas of the Banda Sea region. Still seeing quite a bit of activity here from yesterday. Although it looks like things have tapered off slightly in that area with the latest one. Looks to be a 4.9 in this little cluster. That's where that 7.1 struck, and also those upper sixes here in the last few days. The latest activity here in this globe, in this portion of the map, a 4.7 in the Taiwan area. So definitely seeing quite a bit of momentum and strain up here across areas of the western, northwestern areas of the Pacific Plate. Down here, South Samoa area. Looks like this has tapered off since last night. Let me look at the earthquake 3D globe here. One earthquake, North Island, New Zealand, it looks like showing up at 3.3, but overall, most of the newer quake activity here stretching across the northwestern areas of the Pacific Plate. The Big Island of Hawaii, well, that's kind of in the middle of it all, right? If you think about it, Mauna Loa showing some activity. It looks like we're getting a swarm again back around Kilauea Volcano. Latest at 2.1 up at the top of Mauna Loa, relatively shallow conditions. Let's jump in and see what's going on there with the volcano activity. Stand by here for a second. This was put out yesterday, so we don't have an update yet. But let's check out the tilt meters here real quick and see what we got going on. All right, Kilauea Volcano. Go over here to the USGS volcanoes map, and here you can sort through many different instruments in terms of cameras, GPS, gas, infrasound, seismometer, tilt meter, all that good stuff out here. But I like to look at these tilt meters here, and basically the tilt meters give us a good indicator of what's brewing below the surface here, far as inflation goes. Now, over the past 2 days, we've seen a sharp rise in inflation there at Kilauea Volcano Summit area. Although it looks like in the last 6 hours or so, things are leveling off and maybe even heading towards a downtrend. But the overall picture here paints that pretty sharp rise in the last couple days here across the Kilauea Volcano. Continue to watch that. It looks like that has keyed up a little bit of earthquake activity as well today. More so in the last 8 hours or so. Looks like we've seen an uptick in earthquake activity out here, stressing the crustal areas around this volcano. Obviously, we know there's magma movement underneath this area, magma intrusion, but also at the same time, is that what's going on here across Mauna Loa? These are two different plumbing systems, but overall, these guys sit over the hotspot region, right? So as a whole, that could be affecting everything that's going on within both of these volcanoes. We'll continue to watch that. With elevated earthquake activity, definitely watch that. One earthquake out here across the western areas of Iran, a 5.2, 7 o'clock this morning it looks like. Let me look at the earthquake 3D globe here, see what we got going on. There's that 5.2, a couple other earthquakes out there as well, but nothing, absolutely nothing like what we're seeing up in Iceland. Goodness, that is quite the earthquake swarm. One earthquake up here or down here in the Haiti area, it looks like. I'll take that back. That's in the Dominican Republic area, it looks like. 5.0, 9 o'clock this morning, off the plate boundary, about 19 kilometers deep or so. Rest of the area around the Caribbean plate looks fairly quiet. Do have some earthquake activity in Colombia, a 4.5 late last night. South America region. One earthquake this morning, that's going to be a 5.1. But overall, I think seismic activity today has been quite elevated across the globe, more so up here in the Iceland area. Of course, you know, these volcanoes up there, they can stir things up and make life not so pretty up there in this area of Iceland. Now, whether this is going to turn into an explosive event or not, we'll have to watch that. Refresh this here, make sure we got the most recent information here. There's definitely more than a 4.1. We're getting some 5s kicking up out there as well now. So I wouldn't doubt it if we start to see something happen here soon. While magma accumulation continues, ongoing seismic activity can be expected due to stress release in the area. Earthquakes up to magnitude 5.5 can be expected in these swarms, but like I say, we're getting this swarming occurring eastern areas now. Inflation still building up there. Magma trying to find its way. The question is, is it going to be a slow release somewhere, or is this going to pop? It's a very good question. More likely, we'll probably see some fissures open up here soon around that area. The seismic activity last night and this morning is an example of the episodic seismic activity that can be expected while magma accumulation is in progress. The fact that there are now larger earthquakes than before in the area does not necessarily mean an increased rate of magma accumulation. Well, that's calming, right? I guess that calms some nerves, but realistically, what's creating the further earthquake activity out there, right? More magma moving around, I would say. So we'll continue to watch that, and I think we'll know. We'll probably hear about it if this thing does decide to go. But for now, it looks like everything is it's getting active, definitely remaining active out here. And these earthquakes are occurring generally. Let's go back to satellite view. All over the place out here across Iceland. Not only just around this volcano area, around the Rick James Peninsula, but we're getting earthquake activity all over the place. So there's a lot going on here in terms of the plate dynamics and also volcanic activity, which goes hand in hand up here due to the plate boundary that these guys sit on. So it looks like something big time is brewing up here. How big is the ultimate question? We'll continue to watch that and report back on it if anything changes out here through the afternoon. So it's definitely a rather interesting couple days there across the Iceland area. Do want to say we wish everyone out there that served a happy, safe Veterans Day, which is today. We do appreciate the veterans that have helped keep us safe out here in the past and still do, right? All right, I'm trying to think what else there is as far as earthquake activity goes. There's a lot here on this map. Kind of gives us, painting a little picture here of some good-sized unrest going on today across this planet. Let's see what we got going on for space weather activity. Is anything major going on here? Well, we're still looking at the potential here for a G2 class storm, it looks like, on the November 11th UTC time. So right now, UTC time is going to be November 10th, about 1852. So we'll hit the 11th time frame a little bit later on this evening, which puts this here at about tomorrow night for this increasing activity. So watch potentially in the day on Saturday, leading into Saturday night, Sunday morning, for that potential G2 class storm. It's a moderate to strong storm, and we could see auroras down into some of the states there once again. I think that's pretty cool to see. I haven't seen it yet here in Northern California. I think it'd take a little bit much stronger system, much stronger storm than a G2 to see it down here. But one of these days, you never know. All right, let's look at the graphs here. This is the sunspot graphs. Shows the magnetogram of the sunspots, and they, man, I keep saying it, but they are looking pretty wimpy out here. The only area of interest is going to be this region down here, center disk here. I was looking at this one. It looks like maybe it's starting to amp up slightly within that magnetic core, but that is going to be out of sight, out of mind here in the coming days, which will have no effect on Earth. And we are left with a whole lot of nothingness. Welcome to solar minimum. Well, maybe not solar minimum. It's supposed to be solar maximum, but sure feels like solar minimum. Right now, 80% chance for a C flare and flare at 15% chance. X flare around 1%. Being pretty generous with those numbers. And quite frankly, I don't see a lot coming around the bend. Really no features out there whatsoever. No major coronal holes, no major elevated sunspot activity. We are going to be entering into some quiet conditions here for the sun as far as flaring goes. But look for a little bit of auroras in the forecast here tomorrow, beginning tomorrow into tomorrow night. So look for that. Storm Prediction Center out here. Not a whole lot going on in severe weather. And this weather model is just... I've been watching the past couple videos. I've been talking about big storm coming out here in the West Coast. And lots of rainfall coming. And then yesterday morning it showed that it was backing off. And then last night it showed that it was coming in. And today it shows that it's backing off again. It just goes to show you that these weather models do not stay the same. And what do you believe? What does one believe when it comes to these weather models? You know, is it going to be the GFS? Is it going to be the ECM WF model, the European model? Which one's going to be correct? Either way, it looks like these storm systems out here, the one that's supposed to slam into the West Coast, is taking a large backing off, so to speak. Now, I know Southern California is going to be getting some rain, but I'm not seeing that rainfall rate accumulation like I was seeing last night. It's unfortunate. In fact, if anything, look at this. I mean, we'll be lucky if we get a couple sprinkles up here where I live outside of Chico. Most of the rain is heading back out to the Pacific. And then again, this could change again tonight. I don't know. It's a little frustrating. I wish these guys would make up their mind. Let me show you guys here. Rain accumulation. Now, this is an ECMWF model, the next 10 days. These guys are even in agreement with the GFS model, showing just very minimal precipitation out here where I live outside of Chico. And that is in agreement with the GFS model, which shows even less moisture out here now. We'll be lucky if we see some sprinkles. And I don't like that. I believe that's got to do with this high pressure ridge that's building out here across the center portion of the country, kind of cooking some people out here. Watch this thing grow. It's a little, I don't know, it's keeping this low pressure system off the West Coast a little bit, unfortunately. But again, this could all change by tonight. But the closer we get to Tuesday and Wednesday, if these stay the same far as these forecast models go, these trends, then unfortunately we won't get our precipitation like we were supposed to out there. Temperatures out across this portion of the country definitely above average. You could see that there. Across portions of Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all these guys are looking at some pretty good heat coming in next week. A little taste of well, I wouldn't say summer, but doesn't look like there's any signs of winter in the forecast out there, at least for the first half of November. A lot of orange up here on the map. A lot of these colors indicating well above average temperatures. West Coast, yes, we are getting cooler conditions and a little bit of wet weather, but nothing like I'm hoping for. I don't know. I still got my fingers crossed that this will play out. I just woke up this morning, seen that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just pretty much ruined my day. And yes, weather does affect a lot of people's their mindset. I'm a big fan of waking up and having it rainy, cool and windy. That's my kind of weather. So we'll see what happens, right? We'll definitely see what happens. Live stream is up, folks. Like I say, it went down earlier this morning. I don't know what time exactly, but we're up. We're back up and running. And we'll continue to watch the earthquake activity out there rumble across the Iceland area. I gotta see if I can hold on a second here. I gotta see if I can find a I'll do this on this side, but it would be beneficial here to see if I can find an earthquake seismogram over here across the Iceland area. Now there's just one up here on the normal map, but I can change this and I can add much more of these seismograph stations there in Iceland. This one's a little ways away from the earthquake activity, but it is showing up nonetheless. Some of that earthquake activity is showing up in Iceland on these seismograph stations here. But again, that's a ways north here of all this volcanic activity. But I kind of like that. It adds on here. So, all right, folks, have a good one. Stay safe out there. We will catch you guys back here a little bit later tonight, unless something major happens. Of course, we'll jump in and provide updates out here. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later. Have a good Friday.